Good evening, everyone. I'm Priya Anand, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on effective communication skills brought to you by Education Nest. At Education Nest, we are dedicated to empowering organizations through high quality, impactful training using AI powered solutions. As a proud subsidiary of Sambodhi Research and Communication, we blend a rich legacy of excellence, innovation, and impact into every program we design. Whether it's owning your technical abilities or soft skills, we believe that continuous learning is the key to staying ahead in this dynamic world. Today's session is all about effective communication, a skill that is not just essential but transformative in both personal and professional settings. Now, before we dive in, we want to make this session as interactive as possible. We encourage you to share your thoughts and questions in the chat throughout the webinar. We'll be addressing the questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, let me introduce you to our expert trainer for today, Anupama Gupta. With more than 22 years of experience in training professionals to master communication skills, soft skills, leadership skills, train the trainer programs, and many more, Anupama has a unique ability to make complex concepts accessible and practical. She is a certified POSH trainer and brings with her industry experience in managing training and development functions as well. Today, Anupama will guide us through the ins and outs of effective communication and share techniques that you can start using right away. Welcome, Anupama. We're eager to learn from you today.
Thank you so much, Priyam, and that was a beautiful description. I really happy to hear that with the way that you introduced communication skills. It's not only the skill that is, it is a transformative skill, and that's a beautiful way to talk about communication skills. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Anupama Gupta. We'll be doing a small training today. I would not say training. It's just the introduction of a soft skill called effective communication. Now, effective communication is a big umbrella. Uh, I would narrow it down today for you for how to effectively communicate in the corporate setup or probably at your workplace. Definitely. So let's start without doing any further delay. Priyam, I'll start with the sharing with the screen now, right? Thank you. And before I start, let me thank Education Nest to bring in such a beautiful concept of webinar and developing soft skills for everyone around the world. Thank you so much, Education Nest. And as we discussed, we'll be starting effective communication skills today, and that too in the corporate setup. Now, when we are doing the education effective communication, there are certain questions that are coming to mind when we're talking about effective. So everyone is talking about communication, effective communication, but still there are certain questions which are left in my mind. I have collaborated few of them today for your for your understanding and to make it more easier for you to understand and adapt in your life on a daily basis. Okay, let's start. The first question that I bring in is what are the key elements of communication in corporate setup? So we all know what is communication. I don't think there will be anyone who would not understand what is communication. We know communication is an interaction between two individuals or two groups. Okay. But when we talk about elements of communication, then, and that too in the corporate setup, how do you ensure that you are covering all the elements of the communication and you're making it more effective? Let's look at the elements. So the first element that we talk about here is completeness. Make sure whenever you are talking or writing or even through the non-verbal communication, okay, your message is complete. It should not be lacking any important detail. And when you're saying you should be complete, it should be accurate as well. It cannot have incorrect details or information. Concise, very clear. It should be completely covering all the details without any miss. Concrete with data. If you're saying anything without any data, it may not be impactful for your communication, and the effectiveness would not be there. Your audience need to have the data to provide proper concrete data. Then make sure your channel of communication. What are the channels of communication? Your channels of communication can be a written communication in the form of emails or messages or probably any kind of notices. Okay. And then otherwise, if it's not a written communication, it's a verbal communication. So you are communicating face to face or you're communicating through on phone, then it would be a verbal communication. And even nonverbal communications can be through your gestures, through your eye expressions. Your channel of communication are concrete enough or they're complete enough to take care of your message. The next element is the audience. Whom are you sending this?
Um, Sorry everyone for this inconvenience. I believe Anupama has some technical error at her end. We'll just wait for her to join back. In the meanwhile, maybe you can think of the questions that you have regarding communication skills. We all, many of us struggle, even though it is a very common thing. Communication is something that you're doing on a daily basis. But we do tend to struggle in many situations, right? While we are either talking to a boss or a manager or our colleagues, we tend to struggle to communicate exactly what we are thinking. So this is like a golden opportunity for you. This window is here for you to actually think what you can ask the trainer and gain maximum benefit from this webinar. So, oh, great. We have Anupama back with us. We were missing you, Anupama. There's so much to learn from you.
I'm really apologizing here. I am not sure. I was just pulled out and then I'm pulled in. So
No
some kind of
worries.
technical glitch. Thank you
Yeah.
to Google, I believe there. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Over to you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I was talking about the audience because the audience is the most important factor of communication. Because as I was discussing, communication from the audience will actually tell you whether your communication was complete, was correct, was concise, was clear, or concrete. Whether the channel of communication that you selected was appropriate for your audience or not. Okay, and then your audience will tell you whether your communication was full of empathy and whether the strategic alignment to the goal that you really wanted, why you wanted to communicate with your audience, is that being taken care of or not. So let's go ahead and look at these audience part, and let's see, understand how the audience and how we can make sure that our audience, we are communicating with them in the proper fashion. Let's go ahead. The second question is, how can one build and maintain strong professional relationships through effective communication? So again, going back to the communication key elements, again, we will take along with them and answer this question. And for effective communication, we will make sure that we understand our audience, we plan for them, we make sure our body language, which is a non-verbal communication, is appropriate, our energies and enthusiasm on the best levels. So how we define them, I will be talking about it. And then, is it simple enough for the audience to understand or not? Now, when we talk about audience can be three of different types: visual, auditory, kinesthetic. What do we understand by visual audience? Anybody who loves to see and then learn from that, they are the visual audience. So if you see someone saying, you know what, let me see how things go from here. Okay. So you know that the person is a visual person. They would love to see things properly. Okay. Auditory audience are those people who understand just by listening. Okay. Normally people who are very good with their audience or the auditory part, they are the best people to learn from the traditional teaching methods. Okay. And kinesthetic people are the people who love to do things by their own hands or they want to experience it. Let's see. Visual is show me and I'll understand. Auditory, they are tend to benefit most from the traditional teaching techniques. And kinesthetic, touching, feeling, and experiencing the material at hand, the activity at hand. Okay. So when you are planning whom you're going to present and you need to identify your audience, just check out whether your audience is a visual audience, your auditory audience, or kinesthetic audience. Normally, what is suggested is the kind of world that communication is developing now is that they make a combination of visual and kinesthetic audience. Okay, so they when you're communicating, make sure you're giving them a visual presentation. Also, you give them something in their hand to practice or something that they can touch and feel, because that will be their regular way to uh, uh, understanding, and they will be happy to give you the right feedback that you're looking for, and the message has been received. As I was talking about the examples, the phrases of different audience, let's see a few examples here. The visual audience would say, I get the picture. Show me. In my perspective, let me see. Whereas the auditory audience would say, I hear you. Sounds like, tell me more. That rings a bell. And a kinesthetic audience would probably give you a phrase like, I need to get my arms around it. Give me some time to process it. You know what? My gut is telling me that I should be going with it. Let me handle it. These are the few phrases that your audience will come back to you, or they will keep saying. You can help them. With these statements, you can identify your audience. Now, from here, you can plan out how would you be communicating with your audience. Okay. Now, when we talk about what role does non-verbal communication play in corporate settings and how can it be improved? Now, before we go ahead and understand non-verbal communication, let's look at the three types of communication that we have. We all know the three types of communication are verbal, written, and non-verbal. Verbal communication is the form that we are doing right now. We are talking to each other. I'm presenting. You would have questions. You will come back. And it's a face-to-face verbal communication that we are doing. We can do the verbal communication on the phone or any other telecommunication method as well. Written communication is anything that we write on a paper. It's called written communication. Apart from these two, the other form of communication is the non-verbal communication, but does not require any writing. Then what exactly is non-verbal communication? Non-verbal communication is all your body language cues that you are giving in turn along with verbal or written communication that you're doing. It's a combination along with verbal communication or written communication. How? When you are talking to someone, your voice, your tone, your gestures, your eye contact, your body language, they come along with the verbal communication. Okay. And when you're written something, even your tone that you're writing and the words that you're selecting is also telling the mood that you're actually in. Mode and mood, what? Both the things would be added on without you be knowing that, because that's a non-verbal thing. So verbal, written, and non-verbal. Let me tell you a very fun fact. Let's see. A fun fact. Do you know, out of verbal, written, and non-verbal, which is the most important communication, which is getting the most part of the communication, part of the complete pie? Let's see. This ratio is called 55, 38, and 7 ratio. How that ratio is divided in 55, 38, and 7? Let's see. 55% is your non-verbal means of communication. So when you are looking at me, you are not very much interested right now in my content, but you see me, my eye contact with you, my body language, my hand gestures, all these are very important to you. Collaboratively, you will be having an impact, whether you like the communication or whether you do not like the communication. And after this, my tone, my vocal tone, how am I saying things right now, going to matter a lot. And only 7%, the content that I'm speaking right now, will matter to you. Mazaya, it's a fun fact, right? So 55, 38, 7. So we will be concentrating on our non-verbal communication from now on. Now, how does this get translated in corporate setup? Say, for example, you go into your office today and you're not in a mood to speak to anybody today. Okay. However, it's a workplace. You have to communicate. Okay. So you go ahead and the manager asks you to do a particular task and you rudely reply, you know what? Why should I be doing it? Let the others do. When you're not normally like this, the manager would get a cue that there is a problem. They are not looking at what exactly happened, what exactly you're saying right now. They would ask you, any problem? Do you want to talk about it? That is the reason. The reason they are asking you is because your tone and your body language has changed. And you do not wish to say those words. It's just the 7%. You also go back and say, so I'm so bit on a bad weather today. And I'm so sorry for what I said right now. I'll be working on it. Don't worry. I'm taking it up. And that's what is the difference. So 55, 38, 7 is the best way to remember that non-verbal communication is the most important way of communication, especially in the corporate setup. Let's go ahead. When you're talking about non-verbal communication, what all is included? As I said, eye contact, handshake. Because why we say handshake here? Because in corporate setup, you normally greet anybody in your workplace with handshake. Okay, you smile, you laugh, and your posture. Now, when you're making eye contact, what exactly does that mean? It is meaning here that when you're talking to me, or I am saying something to you, and there is eye contact with you, then I am listening to you. I am respecting you. I respect what you're saying right now. I acknowledge what you're saying right now. And for communication in corporate setup, it is the most important factor. If you are not showing respect to your audience, and if you're not paying attention to your audience will not be happy to communicate with you, and that would lead to problems in future. Handshake. When you're shaking hand with the people, you're saying there's an affirmation that I welcome you and let's work together. That's a gesture of welcoming and working together. When you're smiling and laughing, that means you're adaptive, you're happy to be here, and you're happy in the company of the people whom you're working. And your posture. So, for example, right now also when we're sitting upright and we are not slouching on our body, on our couches or on a chair. We should be upright because that means we are ready to work, and that's what is required in the workplace. So if you're in the workplace and if you're not sitting properly or you're actually slouching on your chair, will that give out a good impression? No. People say, why do I care? It's my position, I can relax. No, you cannot. It's a workplace. Again, it's a way of communication at your workplace. So all these things would matter to you at your workplace, and non-verbal cues are the cues that people look for. As I said in my previous slide, 55%, not even 50, more than 50%, which is 55%. Is that okay, everyone? So, cues from the here or the understanding that we get from this slide is maintain eye contact while talking to your peer group or your managers, mind your gestures, check your postures, smile, and check your tone. What is the tone? How do we define tone? Tonality. Tonality basically talks about what kind of voice you're holding right now. Let's see. When we talk about tonality, we talk about four things: PAVP, pitch, articulation, volume, and pace. What is pitch? How high or low of an octave you use when you speak. So if I'm talking to you right now and it is not very comfortable for you to hear because my voice is shrieking, then my pitch is pretty high for you. And we need to take care of it while we're talking because we need to make our voice soothing. The things that we hear about making a bass, relaxed voice would actually give you a nice pitch. Articulation. What kind of words are you selecting for your message? As I said in one of my previous slides, simplicity is the key. We know there are so many people who are speaking fancy language or fancy English language these days. If I give you a small example here about articulation. Earlier, when we wanted to hug someone, we would just say that I would like to hug you. However, these days, people say, I would like to embrace you. The words are changing. However, in workplace, it should be simpler. Embracing may be a simple word for few people, but for some people, embracing is a difficult word. So you need to check with your audience what kind of language they will be okay with. Go for the most simple and straightforward language. Do not select fancy language. We are not here to write a novel, are we? We are not. We are here to communicate. We are here to reach the goal. We are here to get into the strategic alignment of the organization goal. And if that is the goal, then our words has to be simple and straightforward. Again, the volume. The volume. Your volume cannot be too loud or cannot be too low. It should match up to your audience volume. Shall I give you a tip here? If you are talking to anybody on phone, okay, whatever your current volume is without being on phone, add 15% more volume to it. You will be more audible and will be more clearer. Because telecommunication devices do have a tendency to make your voice sound slower. So it's a tip that you can add 15% more volume to your voice and you will be more clearer on the phone. And the last one in tonality is P as in pace. Too many words in one sentence and too many words within a minute is the problem. Your speed of speaking should be slow and you should have many pauses in between. There is no limit, absolutely no limit in adding the pauses in your sentences. Please go ahead and make short sentences even while you're speaking. It's a suggestion always for written communication, but it's a suggestion here for your verbal communication also. Take a breath. You're not hearing a breathless song from Shankar Mahadevan. Or you're not Shankar Mahadevan. Even Shankar Mahadevan in his one of the interviews said that he took a break while singing breathless. So why are we in a hurry? Take pauses, take a break, and then speak. So go ahead, take pause, and then speak. And when you're speaking, select the words that are easier to remember. Understand this, people. Our body has certain things that we need to take care of. This is our brain, which is doing the thinking process. And between the brain, there is a process, there's a gap between mouth and brain. So it takes time for you to think and speak. And if you would do not have, if you do not have the content properly, you should be taking a pause. You should not be using fillers here. A lot of people have a tendency of using mm-hmm, yeah, I know. These are called fillers. No, please do not use them. The pace should be, if you have completed one sentence, take a breather, let your brain function, prepare the second sentence, and send it to your mouth. And then you can speak it. That's how we talk about P, A, V, P as the tonality. This complete factor is called tonality. As in previous slide we understood, tonality plays 38%. After nonverbal communication, it plays 38% role in making your communication effective. Again, not to be left behind. Okay, so after nonverbal communication, the second most important factor of tone. Let's go ahead. The next question is, how can active listening enhance team collaboration and productivity? What do you suggest? What do you think the active listening does? Active listening, let me tell you, is when you're paying attention, show that you're listening, provide feedback, defer judgment, respond appropriately. When you're doing this, you are doing active listening. But again, the question is, what is listening? Are we listening? Are we not listening? How do we define that we are listening? Now let's go back and let's look at these points in a bit of detail. When we say listening, there is a listening triangle that we need to follow. The listening triangle includes ask, listen, paraphrase or confirm, and re-ask. Ask. When you are listening, when you're communicating and your audience or when you're communicating with your partner, when the person has said something, you're listening to them. Make sure you understand the difference between hearing and listening. Right now, you're all on webinar with me. Okay. However, there will be certain sounds in your room or probably area where you're sitting, which are not my voice, but you're still hearing them. You're not paying attention to them, but you're still hearing them. You're not paying attention, but you're listening to them. You're paying attention to me and you're listening to me. The two sentences, first one is hearing and the other is listening. So when you're asking, you ask questions. What do you ask? Is ask questions. Ask open-ended questions. What kind of questions are open-ended questions? Questions which do not end in yes or no as an answer. When those questions are asked and you listen to the responses from the person whom you're interacting with, reframe them, reframe the answer, paraphrase them, and understand, ask them that whether I have understood what you're trying to say is correct. If not, can you please confirm it again? Can you please tell me again? And till the time the triangle is not complete, you'll have to keep asking. Is that okay? Now, question, a lot of people say, you know what, I was listening to her or him, but then he was always saying, you're not listening to me. Was you were not showing how you were listening. Probably you had an attention with your ears to them, but your body language did not say that. The body language and your ears did not do a collaboration there. Okay. Normally, what happens if you are in a restaurant, say for example, and you're giving the order to your someone who's there on your table, for your probably waiter or the manager of the restaurant, when you're there taking your order, and if they're not looking at you, they're just writing on the piece of paper that they have in their hand. You're not sure whether they have listened to you properly and they've taken down the order or not. So you really want them to listen to you and show you how you are there, you've been listened to, and how do you want to be doing that. So showing to listen is a listening posture. The listening posture talks about bringing your hands to truth plane, the body posture. What is truth plane? Truth plane is the half of the upper body. That's like something which is your there on your upper part of the body. You put your hands here, and your hand position would be in the front, in front, interlacing your fingers gently. Okay. If you have something in your hand like a notepad or something, you can keep that here. But in case your hands are free, then you can put your fingers gently or interlace them. Okay. Your palm should be inside, facing your belly button. Okay. And probably listen to them. Now, in this particular sector, the complete setup, you have to make sure you have the eye contact with the party who is speaking. Once you do that, that's when we say you are putting on a listening posture. Okay. So once you do that and then you follow the listening triangle, it is when we say that you are actively listening. So in listening, again, we go back, ask questions, we listen, we show them that you're listening, we paraphrase, we confirm, and that's when the complete cycle is done. Okay. The next question is, what are some common communication barriers in the workplace and how can they be overcome? Obviously, everything has some kinds of pros and cons, and communication is no wonder there. It is absolutely okay to have certain communication barriers, and people do feel stressed out because of that. No need to be stressed out because of that. Let's see what are the common barriers and how we can overcome them. The first one is the language. I may speak Hindi, I may speak English, but I may not speak one of the regional language. It's okay. Every word has a different meaning for different people. It's absolutely okay. How can you overcome it? Identify a common language, and if not, try and bridge a gap between the language with a common language like English or Hindi, whichever is the most preferred way of communication at your workplace. Communication apprehensions, undue tensions, anxiety about oral communication, written communication, or both. Some people are not very comfortable with oral communication, verbal communication. They do not want to talk to you because of XYZ reasons. They are not comfortable. They are happy to write you a mail rather than picking up a phone call and talking to you. It's okay. Understand. Again, as I said, I'll go back to my first slide talking about audience. Understand how your audience wants to interact with you, communication channel they want to interact with you. Okay. So again, you can remove this barrier with a very ease. Filtering. A sender's manipulation of information so that it will be seen more favorably by the receiver. It's not, as I said, your communication should have all the key elements. It should be clear, it should be concise, it should be complete, it should be concrete, and it should not be manipulated. It should have all the required information for the person to make the decision. You cannot manipulate by hiding the information. Once you do that, and in future, the things get haywire, That will be a problem, and you will not be able to save your face at that point of time. And as in Hindi, a lot of people say, "Ek bar ka jhoot, सौ बार का झूठ." So let's avoid it. Barriers to effective communication, second part, includes emotions. How my receiver is feeling at the time the message is received, how will it influence, and how the message is interpreted is where exactly the problem is. Again, have you checked whether your audience is ready to communicate with you or not? What kind of emotional standard they are in right now? Is there any problem that they may not be able to understand your perspective? Again, the selective perception as a barrier would come into the picture. So we need to understand from the audience perspective and then take away all the barriers from there. When we talk about selective perception, their interest, their background, their experience, and attitude would also play a lot of importance. So we need to check that and then go ahead. As I said, when we were talking about the types of audience, again, these things will come along. If the person has been always been trained to go ahead, touch, feel, and experience, they become kinesthetic. So they have a perception accordingly. And the last and the most important one is information overload. In the age of internet today, there's so much information available about each and everything. And when you are talking to them again with too many details, would be a overload and they will lose interest. I hope that's not happening right now here with us. The information overload is to be avoided. Only the important factors to be taken care of in the communication, but not missing out anyone. Okay? What is the importance of emotional intelligence in communication and how can it be developed? Emotional intelligence, what do we understand? Intelligent quotient, IQ, or emotional intelligence? IQ is basically for the brain development. Emotional intelligence is for the people understanding the emotions, not only theirs, but also of the people around. Is it important for communication? Yes, it is very important for communication. And whether can that be developed? Yes, it can be developed. Question is how? Let's look at that. First, understand emotional intelligence. It is the ability to, as I said, recognize the emotions, correctly identify the emotions you're feeling, and know why you're feeling. Some great sayings by Steve Steen and Howard Book. A competitive economy demands that we be problem solvers, not problem reporters or electors. As I said, EI is very important in communication. Let's see what exactly it impacts. It increases the self-awareness. It improves the interpersonal relationships. It helps in conflict resolution and management. It enhances the team collaboration. Let's see how we can get benefit from it and how we can develop EI for our betterment, for our communication betterment. The first step towards developing EI is self-awareness. How do we do that? Okay, we'll suggest you three things to that you do every day in morning or before hitting the bed. Do one thing. Schedule a downtime. Create a technology-free zone and name the specific emotion. Now, what do we do in scheduling when you are having a downtime? Normally, what you would do is probably when you get up in the morning, around whatever time, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, wherever time you get up before going to work, make it half an hour early. Okay. And that time should be completely you only, where you do not have anybody around, where you do not have any technology around. That's a second step. We are in a world today where we are surrounded by the technology. There is not even a single minute that we are away from technology. It has to be a very, very conscious effort that we develop a technology free zone. And what are we going to do at that point of time? We are going to put in our thinking caps on and we will think, how was my day yesterday? What did I do good yesterday? What can I do to make things that I did not do so well yesterday? And are there any challenges I'm facing right now? Who is the person I can go out and reach out to that can help me with that particular challenge? And because of all the scenario, currently, how am I feeling? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling happy? Am I not so happy? I'm feeling a bit agitated. I have a nervousness. I have a fear. Name the specific emotion. Because when you do that, you are becoming self aware. And anybody who is high on self awareness score, okay, they will be able to identify the emotions that they are feeling. And when I know something about myself, I'm being sensitive about particular scenario or about particular stuff, then I get to understand others also. I understand the cues that I get, non-verbal cues from the others as well. And that's when we are able to empathize with the people whom we are communicating with. We all know empathy is putting ourselves in someone else's shoe. How do we do that? If I'm not aware about the emotions that I am feeling, why am I going to care about your emotions? I am not. But if I'm self aware and I know my emotions and how I manage my emotions, I'm able to empathize with you. I'm able to understand your feelings, your thoughts, and your perspectives as well. So when you are first self aware and then you're able to empathize, you will be able to communicate more adaptability towards your audience. And that's when I was talking about understanding your audience. Going back to again the elements that we had on our first slide. Is that okay, everyone? Let's go ahead. So when we are doing this, how do we reach out to them? What part of body anatomy are we talking them through? Again, understanding the audience. Are we reaching out to their eyes? Are we reaching out to their ears? Or are we reaching out to their gut? The feeling that they're having right now. Okay? So when we are answering to these questions, we are empathizing with them. People are more tend to be more open to you and communicate with you. Let's look at the next question. How can one adapt their communication style when interacting with colleagues from different cultural backgrounds? When we have different cultures, we all know all the world today is globally accepting different cultures and we are promoting DEI, diversity and inclusion. Okay, so when we are including them, okay, then people are from different cultures are also coming in. They have different language that they're coming in. So how do we manage that? How do I ensure that I effectively communicate with different cultures? Adapt the language. As I said previously, adapt to a common language. And while you are at workplace, do not speak in regional language or do not speak to a language which is not understandable by the others. It's one of the biggest barriers and taboo in workplace. Understand the non-verbal cues. There are certain signs, there are certain body languages which are acceptable in certain cultures and certain not. So define certain non-verbal language also in your workplace so that you do not offend anybody with any of your non-verbal cues. As I said, consider preferences, use clear and simple language, and again, to make sure that you're listening paraphrase, and summarize. One of the most difficult things to handle, how to handle difficult conversations at workplace. Difficult conversations. How do you do it? You have to tell them that this is not going to happen. This will be a problem. We will not be doing this project. How do you do that? Prepare. You first need to prepare yourself. Okay. How would you do the preparation? Identify what is the purpose. Gather all the, as I said, your communication has to be concrete with backup data, completely backed up with the data. And basis that, anticipate questions and reactions. And then create safe environment. What do we understand by creating safe environment? Possibly create a room which is comfortable enough for the other party also to sit down, relax, and create, give them the opportunity to speak. Tell them we are here to discuss and we are open to listen to everything. Again, go back to active listening, complete the triangle of listening, and show them that you are listening. And again, start with empathy. As we discussed, EI and empathy, open dialogue, acknowledge their emotions. Say that I understand what you're feeling right now. And if I would have been in your position, I might have felt the same thing. And that's okay. And keep, when you are self-aware, you're able to control your emotions, you will be calm and make sure that you have a very respectful tone. We've already discussed it plays 38% role in your communication. State the issues clearly. Use I statements. If you want to tell them something, tell them including, do not generalize it. Do not say that we have got to know. Say I. Once you personalize it, things become easier to handle. Focus on solutions, not blame. You're not here to blame the other party, but you're here to solve the problem. And if required, take support from people like HR or from your senior management, because they'll be able to help you and suggest you what are the best possible solutions in that particular situation. The last module that I'll be covering in communication today is how can feedback be given and received effectively to promote growth and development. Strategies for giving feedback. Again, one of the difficult conversations that we have. So in difficult conversation, giving feedback, be specific and very focused. As I said, avoid generalization. Focus on the behavior, not the personality. A lot of people have a habit saying, you know what, I've always seen you doing like this and you're always like this. Do not use statements like this. Say this particular instant and this particular instance, this particular behavior of yours is not appreciated. Give your feedback promptly. It's not something that something happened about 6 months back and you're talking about today. No, that's not the right way of feedback. If there was a feedback to be given, it was supposed to be given at that point of time, not after 6 months. Because there can be a possibility the person might have regretted that particular behavior already and has already changed. So no going back and beating around the bush again. When you're giving feedback, follow the sandwich profile. Give a positive statement, the area of improvement statement, and then close it with the appreciation. That should leave a good taste while you're giving the feedback. And make sure when your feedbacks are given, they're completely clear and actionable. State expectations clearly, how you want the person to behave, and what are the suggestions for the improvement, and how you can also support the person in getting the improvements done. Okay? As I said, be empathetic and supportive. strategies of giving receiving feedback, be open minded and receptive, ask for clarification, take time to reflect, avoid getting defensive. This is very important. Please focus on the message, not the delivery. Okay, how the person has given feedback to you is not very important, but why the feedback was given, you need to focus on that. Create an action plan with the person who has given the feedback, or probably your mentors and managers, and go ahead. Follow up. After you have made the changes as per the requirement, go ahead with the feedback, the person who has given you feedback, and do a follow up whether the things have improved or not, and what level of improvements has already been shown. And for that, be proactive. And with that, I would like to thank Education Nest for such a beautiful opportunity. And Education Nest has been giving its conducting training for all the domains, including technology, non-technology, like soft skills, behavior skills. You can connect with us on our website, or you can connect with us on our social media handles. Now I would require everyone to come back with their questions that you might have parked up. Priya, I would hand over to you for the question answer session.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anupama, for this incredibly informative session. We've learned a lot today, from mastering our nonverbal cues to handling tough conversations with empathy. Now, as you said, let's open our floor for our Q&A round. We have a few questions in our comment section, so let's go through them one by one. The
Sure.
first question, Anupama, is what are some practical steps to develop better communication habits on a daily basis?
So, first of all, as I said, on a daily basis, you have to practice. Something that you need to practice on a daily basis, start at home. Start with people at home. Okay. When you say starting people at home, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to anybody whom you are comfortable with. A lot of people face problem with their verbal communication a lot. They do not talk in the similar manner that they want to talk at home. They normally talk at home in the similar manner. They're not very clear how we do talk about at workplace. So whatever way you want to practice at workplace, come back home and practice talking in the similar manner. That will be the best way to practice. Number one. Number two, stand in front of mirror, pick up any newspaper or any book that you love to read and read out aloud. And it was the best way to develop your communication skills. It's a tried and tested method. Let me tell you that.
Oh, those are some great tips, Anupama. Thank you. Let's move on to our second question. Is there any listening posture when you are on phone?
Oh, yes. So listening posture on phone. Okay, I've already told you when you're doing a listening posture face to face. So when you on phone, okay, people think nobody's looking at me right now. I can do anything. You are wrong there. People are listening to your body language even on phone. So smile. The first one is to smile and make sure you're sitting upright. Again, your upper body, which is the truth plane body, would come into the picture. Now, if you look at me right now, if I'm visible on the screen, you can see that my hands are on table. Here, if you see, I have kept my hands out on table and I'm talking to you guys. Even when the camera would be off, okay, my body posture would remain the same because that would keep me in the upright position and you would see or hear a professional tone from me. And this is what we call the listening posture. And yes, adding to the icing to the cake would be verbal nods. Uh-huh, I get you. I'm listening here. I understand. If I may ask you a question on this particular point, all these are the verbal nods which should tell your person that you are listening to them. So yes, there's a listening posture to it.
Yeah. Well, the moment you said sit upright, I checked my posture as well. Am I exactly in the posture you're talking about or not?
Yeah.
All right. The third question. How can I effectively communicate with colleagues who have different communication styles?
Different communication.
styles.
Okay, so we understand what are the styles first. Let's understand. I have a style. I'm a person who is a very direct communicator, or I'm an indirect communicator. I'm a formal communicator, or I'm an informal communicator. Okay. So again, going back to your audience slide, identify how they want to communicate. What is the way that they want to communicate? So if they are very direct, they would love to hear only and only direct statements with you. If they are indirect, they don't want anything to come to them directly. They use a lot of vague sentences. Still go ahead and speak to them directly, but in a bit of a their style. You can start with the indirectness and take them to the directness. But people who are into formal and informal mode, it's a workplace. Try and bring them to the formal mode. Even if you are in informal mode, you can tell them that you are in a informal mode. Let's get on to the formal mode. If not, you can go back and do the casual talking. Again, you'll have to go back and check with the audience what is their style. So style can be either direct or indirect, formal or informal.
Thanks, Anupma.
Have I been
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. I mean, please continue. I thought you had finished. You can.
No, I was just asking, have I been able to answer your query there?
I am sure. I mean, at least for me, I understood it quite well. I hope the person who asked the query did understand it as well. Let's just go on to the last question of our evening. Um, how can I build my confidence in public speaking or presenting?
Okay, so again, EI plays a very important role. Self awareness. Okay, so the three tips that I have given to you, okay, is getting up early or taking out half an hour of complete downtime with a tech free zone and thinking. When you are thinking, you have certain emotions going on and you're able to identify those emotions and you're able to take care of them. Once you are self aware and you're self clear that what you want, you're more confident. Now, again, I'll go back to the first question that was asked in the question and answer session. And I told you that you can go ahead and stand in front of the mirror. It's a tried and tested method. It's a scientifically proven that if you're happy to see yourself and you're happy to hear yourself in front of you, your confidence level would touch to the skies and you will not be having problems at your workplace also.
Great. Thanks, Anupma, for patiently answering all the queries. That's all the time, unfortunately, we had for today. I hope you can always reach out to us through our social media handles if you have further questions. So I would like to thank you all for joining us today. We hope you're leaving with new strategies to improve your communication skills. At Education Nest, we're committed to your professional growth and we're here to support you in every step of the way. Before we sign off, I encourage you to stay connected with us on our social media handles mentioned in the previous slide that Anupama had shared for regular updates on our upcoming webinars and training programs. So, have a great evening, everyone. And remember, communication is key to unlocking new opportunities. Bye.
Bye bye, guys.